So today we have the opportunity to open up the brand new starter decks from the One Piece TCG. Bandai has hit us with 6. That's right, 6. Like, just woo up, guys. That is a lot of stuff for us to crack into. I mean, like, we love new stuff, but it means we're going to have a slog a week ahead of us. Because, you know, on the channel, when a new starter deck comes out, we like to have a budget version for you guys up on the channel, as well as an optimized build for each of these starter decks. So, yeah, keep your eyeballs peeled. We'll try and get out those as quickly as we can.
I'm way too busy for a girlfriend.
But in today's video, we'll be opening up each of the starter decks. We'll go in order. We'll try have some timestamps for you as well, so you can jump to the certain deck you want to see. If not, you want to see all of them, get your popcorn out. It's probably going to be a longer video.
Get the popcorn ready.
So we'll take a look at the new cards that we get in the starter deck, as well as the reprints, which are also found in these starter decks, and then we'll just do a bit of a deep dive, let you know what is what out of these decks. Before we do get into it, there will be a giveaway that we'll be giving away one of these starter decks. So all you have to do to enter that giveaway is like the video, be a subscriber of the channel, and let us know what your favorite thing is out of these new starter decks. Actually, because there's 6, you know what, we'll give away 2. So there'll be 2 winners for today's video. Same entry requirements for both winners.
And let the show begin.
So switching over to hand cam here, we can see we're keeping the same theme. I love how they do this with the side of the starter deck boxes. Kind of looks like the backs of the mangas, which is really cool. But we'll start off here with Newgate. What's a nice bonus with these with these starter decks is we do get a booster pack in them, a premium booster pack. So as you can see, we get the deck out. Each deck comes with one of these, and this is the new booster set, which is coming out for us in a couple of weeks. So a nice sneak peek at that. Unfortunately, we won't be opening them up in this video today. Stay tuned for a video coming in the next day or two. We've tried to get a few more packs outside of the 6 that we'll have here today. So yeah, we're trying to get a nice big opening for you guys. So stay tuned for that. But here we go. We'll start off with Newgate. Let's try and bust this open. Oh, it's no longer a little team bag. It's a little peely one. If I can find the peeler. There it is. We'll crack into these and we'll take a look. So none of the leaders out of these are new leaders. They're just reprints of older ones that we've got. So starting us off here, we have Newgate. This is from OPO2. Red leader, 6,000 power, 6 life. Insane kind of stats there. Was definitely a very good deck when OPO2 released. The effect here, for those of you that don't know, end of your turn you can add 1 card. So end of your turn, you have to add 1 card from the top of your life to your hand. So every turn you're slowly negging yourself life. Works well with the law of the show there. But yeah, Newgate, nice little version there of Newgate. Nothing textury on there, if anyone is wondering. Just the lovely artwork. So we're jumping straight into a new card here. This one is a super rare. Edward Newgate himself. You should just get 2 copies of this, but this is 7 cost, 8,000 power body, no counter. On play, you can give 1 rested Don to a leader or character. And then the effect is activate main. You may rest this character a KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less. So pretty decent. You can get some removal when you play him, so you get a nice big 8 cost body removing something with 5,000 power or less. And if you have access to some cost reduction stuff, that is a little bit nicer, which this deck does have. So you get yourselves 2 copies of that. Let's just check out that artwork there. Old Newgate, there we go. So 2 copies of that. This is our second super rare and second look at one of the new cards here. This one is Porcus the Ace. We've got 5 cost, 6,000 body, 1,000 counter. If your leader has Whitebeard's Pirates type, it gains Rush. So in this deck, it will have Rush. And then the effect here is once per turn, if this character would be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you can minus 2,000 power to this character for the turn instead. So it becomes a nice sticky version. Also playing into the law of Ace's Devil Fruit type there. Now another new card, Atmos. This one is pretty decent in the budget version of the build. So stay tuned for that coming up on the channel. This one, 4 cost, 5,000 body, 1,000 counter. Basically, when you attack, you don't take a life with your leader's ability. So you can keep yourself a bit healthier with your 6 life there. So yeah, play it out nice and early. We've got 4 copies of that. Swing in, you're not negging a life, which is nice. Next up, we have Kingju, a new blocker. 3 cost, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. Opponent's turn, when this character is KO'd by an effect, you can give your leader up to 2,000 power during the turn, which is nice. You can stack on Newgate, get him up to 8,000, sometimes 10,000 power, can be wild. We've got 4 copies of Kingju there. Next we have Thatch, which is a 2k counter, cost you 2,000 power. On play, if your leader is Whitebeard Pirates type, you're just negging something by 2000 power, so it can work well with that other Newgate we spoke about before. You can KO things that cost, that have a power of 7000. Just 2 there, so you need to pick up 2 copies of the deck to get a full playset of Thatch there. Next up we have Jozu. This is a reprint. This is a 2k counter that can have Rush if you have 2 or less life and you attach a Don onto Jozu there. There we go, 4 copies of the Jozu. This was originally a rare as well. Here, speaking of another rare, this is Marco, the blocker. 4 cost, 5000 body, 1000 counter. The effect is on KO, you can trash 1 card with a Whitebeard's Pirates type from your hand, English there. And then if you have 2 or less life cards, you can play this card out from the trash, arrested. So we do get a full playset of the Marco here. Next up, we have Rakuyo. This one is also a reprint from OPO2. 3 cost, 4000 body, 1000 counter, Don times 1. Your turn, all your characters with Whitebeard Pirates gain 1000 power. So a nice way to get some good buff on your turn. Going into our events here, this one is You May Be a Fool But I Still Love You. Basically costs you 1. If you have 3 or less life, you won't take a life from your leader's ability. Nice way to stay healthy outside of that Thatch we saw before. Izo is the searcher of the deck, cost you 1, 2000 body, 1000 counter. On play, look at top 5 for a Whitebeard Pirates type card, so that includes characters and events. You do get a full playset of the Izo there. Next up we have Speed Jill with just a vanilla 4 cost, 6000 body, 1000 counter. By the way, the Izo will not miss. Every card in this deck is a Whitebeard Pirates type. Next up we have another vanilla in Namul. This one a 3 cost, 5000 body, 1000 counter. Also get a full playset of the Namul. Haruto is the next one. This one, it helps you manipulate your Don, so costs you 2, 3000 body, 1000 counter. Activate main, you can give a rested Don to a leader or character. And we get a full playset of the Haruto right there. Fossa is a blocker. No fancy effects, just 2 cost, 2000 power blocker. Do get a full playset of the Fossa here as well. And then we move into our Don cards right there. And that is the Newgate deck. Not a bad one. Do see a lot of reprints with that one, which is the case for all of these decks actually. But yeah, Newgate definitely not as good as it once was, but still can get you some wins, as you'll see with some of our profiles there. We'll move on to Uta here as I try to open this pack, open this box without slicing and dicing my fingers. We'll pop this open, we'll grab our pack as well and set it to the side, and then we'll bust into this deck here. We will try find the little pulley tab here.
Oh no, please, take your time.
Alright, we've got this one open. So we've got Uta. This is actually a pretty nice artwork for the Uta. This is a reprint of a starter deck. Starter deck 11. We actually had a nice event similar to the events running for the 6 new starter decks here. When the Uta came out. So Uta is a film, all based around film stuff here. The effect is Don times 1 when attacking. You can flip the top card of your deck face up. If it is a film card, you can add it to your hand. And spoiler, but you're not going to whiff with this deck that we see here. Same with the budget version of the build. Every card in the deck is going to be filmed, so which is quite nice. Or just going to get constantly building a nice big hand with Uta there. So there, that's the leader there. We're going into a brand new card off the rip as well. A super rare in Uta. 4 cost, 6000 body, no counter, is a blocker. Once per turn, you may trash 1 film type card from your hand. Give a rested Don to your leader or character. So there we go. Nice blocker, nice stats there. The effect there is decent, I guess, in this deck. You do have a lot of cards in this deck that are not super useful to you. This is probably the worst out of the star decks, I'm going to say, just out of the box. You'll see why when we get to it in a moment. But Shanks is actually a pretty decent card. 9 cost, 11,000 power. That stats is actually pretty insane. No counter. On play, you can KO something that's rested. So no limitation to the cost of the power. So that is pretty good. Old Shanks there, KOing anything that is rested. Next up we have Gordon, a new blocker. 2 cost, 0 power, 1,000 counter. The effect here, on your opponent's turn, you may trash any number of music type cards from your hand. Your leader will gain 1000 power for the battle when you use this effect for each one trash. So this card is actually the MVP in this deck because we have a lot of music cards in this deck, which is this deck's biggest downside. So Gordon, very good in just like the budget version or the out of the box version for this. We get a nice playset there. Katakuri is another new one that we get. 3 cost, 4,000 power body, 1,000 counter. If your leader is film type, which it is, and you have 6 or more rested cards, so that includes your Don, this character gains 2,000 power. Also does include himself as well, so if he's rested there. And this is all the time effect, so it's not just on your turn, it carries over to your opponent's turn as well, as long as you still have 6 or more cards rested on your side of the field. So 3 costs 6,000 power, which is actually pretty decent. We get a full playset of the Katakuri. Next up, another new card. This is a 2k counter with the Monkey D. Luffy. 2 cost 3,000 body. As I mentioned, 2,000 counter, and if you have a rested Uta, this character gains 1,000 power. Not really going to use that effect. Sometimes, if you're desperate to play out of body, which I guess in the out-of-the-box version, you will, because we have very limited characters here. So you can get a nice buff there. Otherwise, use as a 2k counter. Only 2 copies of it there. Now, we're going to start to see some of the many event cards, the many film and music cards we've got going on here. So backlight, this is another different art of backlight. We believe we've got a few now. This one is actually pretty decent. Activate main. If your leader's Uto, you can choose one of the following. You can either rest something with a cost of 5 or less, or you can KO something that is rested with a cost of 5 or less. Pretty decent card. Especially in this meta, there's a lot of cards around that threshold there. Next up, we have New Genesis. This is the searcher for the deck. It is a free search. So on play, you can look at the top 3 cards, add a film type card to your hand, and then you can restand the Don, which you just used to play New Genesis. So yeah, a free search, really good. Also a different artwork to ones we've seen previous, and you get a full playset there. This deck, while we're talking about alternate arts, this one is one for the collectors for sure, especially Uta collectors. A lot of brand new art going in on this deck. So next up we have I'm Invincible, also one of the better events here. Cost you 3. Activate main, you can set one of your Uta leaders as active, so you can get multiple swings with your leader. Very good. And the triggers, you can give a character or leader 1,000 power for the turn. Mainly going to be using it as the activate main there to get multiple swings with your leader. Going on to Bart, this is a nice reprint of a promo. This one was expensive once upon a time, definitely dropped recently, but also nice to see another version. This is a non-holo version. Cost you 2, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter. The effect is end of your turn. You can rest this character to restand one of your film type characters other than itself. So there we go. Pretty good to be aggressive with the blockers, like the Uta one we saw before, but then still be able to have it as a blocker. Next up, we have Fleeting Lullaby. This one costs you 3. Activate main. If your leader is Uta, you can up to 2 of your opponent's arrested characters with a cost of 4 or less will not become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. This one is also not too bad in this current meta. There's a few decks like Doflamingo or Zoro that like to have some low cost bodies, which you can stun pretty easily with the Fleeting Lullaby there. The trigger is to activate the exact same effect. We'll get 4 copies of that. Next up, we have Where the Wind Blows. Cost you 2. Activate main. If your leader is Uta, you can set all your film type characters as active at the end of the turn. So another way to be aggressive with the blockers, but then still have them as blockers. And the trigger is to do the exact same there. Set all your film type characters as active. Got a full playset of that. Next up, we have the World's Continuation. Cost you 2. This one is a counter. If your leader is Uta, you may return any number of characters to you from your field to your hand, and each one you bounce back gives your leader 2,000 power for the battle. This one is probably the worst just because you don't have access to that many characters in the out-of-the-box version or the budget version. So yeah, probably the worst one out of the ones that we have access to. Next up, we have Tot Musica. This one is another 2 cost event. Activate main. You may rest one of your Uta cards, and you rest up to 2 of your opponent's Don cards. Also, not that fantastic. Maybe if you're going against Nami, can be pretty decent there. Otherwise, yeah, not a lot of use. Like if you know your opponent's going to counter, it can be useful. But yeah, an okay card. Next up, we have a reprint of another promo with the Luffy. Just a vanilla 8 cost, 10,000 body, 1,000 counter. Nice artwork of the Luffy there. And then we have our Don. So that is the Uta deck done and dusted.
A few inches later.
Alright, next up we have one of the better decks in Doflamingo. This sort of stuff takes Doflamingo to top contender, tier 1 deck in our current meta. So Doflamingo, actually a really nice artwork of Doflamingo from OPO1. For effect, for you guys that don't know, sorry, mono blue, 5000, power 5 life. The effect, Don ×2. When attacking, rest a Don. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a 7 Warlords type character with a cost of 4 or less, you can play that card out rested, so you can span the board quite nicely with Doflamingo right there while getting some nice pressure in with a big swing there. So yeah, Doflamingo, nice artwork there. Next up we have Trafalgar Law. This is a new card, pretty decent, 4 cost, 5000 power, 1000 counter. On play you can return one of your characters to your hand, and then you can bounce back one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less to their hand. So pretty nice. You can bounce back things like your searches to bounce back some of their mid-range bodies there, which is actually pretty decent. You get 2 copies of the Law right there. Next up we have Boa Hancock. This is a blocker, 4 cost, 6000 body. On play, look at the top 3 cards of your deck and you can reorder them and then put them at the top of the bottom, and then you give a Rested Don to one of your characters or leaders. The Rested Don doesn't have to go on a 7 Warlords type character, which in this deck is going to be anything, which is pretty decent. 2 copies of that. Next up we have Crocodile. This one is a new one as well, 4 cost, 5000 body, 1000 counter. On play you reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a 7 Warlords type, you can draw 2 cards and place 1 card from your hand at the top of your deck. So a fancy way to get a couple of draw and set up for your leader's ability as well. As we know, if we can reveal a 4 cost, we get to play it, which is actually really nice. Next up we have Buggy, 2k counter, 1 cost, 2000 body. On play, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, reorder them, put at the top or the bottom of your deck, and then we just get 2 copies of the Buggy there. Next up we have Teach. This artwork is actually probably one of my favorite artworks coming out of the new starter decks. Just a cool looking artwork of old Teachy boy there, Blackbeard. 2 cost, 3000 body, 1000 counter. Activate main once per turn. You know, place 1 card from your hand at the top of your deck, and then you can give 2 Rested Don cards to your leader or a character. So this works really well with your leader's ability, because you know we need 2 Don attached to Doflamingo to then be able to swing and activate his leader's ability. So that actually is pretty good, and you'll know what you put on top of your deck, so you can play something out off your leader's ability. So Teach, actually a pretty decent card, getting 4 copies of the Teach there. Next up we have a reprint of the Doffy blocker, 3 cost, 4000 body, 1000 counter. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reorder them, put them at the top or the bottom of your deck. And there we go, full playset of that. Next up we have Overheat, cost you 2 counter. You can give something a 4000 power buff for the battle, and then you can return an active character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. So that can be one of your characters, can be one of your opponent's characters. And then the trigger is you can return 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand. Once again, could be your character, could be your opponent's character. And we do get a full playset of Overheat. Next up we have a reprint of Gecko Moria Vanilla, 4 cost, 6000 body, 1000 counter. Do get a full playset of the Gecko. Next up we have the Kuma, 3 cost, 3000 body, 1000 counter. On play, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and if you reveal you can reveal a 7 Warlords type card and add it to your hand from those 2, then you place the other one at the top or the bottom of your deck. So there we go, nice way to just get a bit of extra draw. You're not going to whiff with the out of the box or the budget version of this deck, probably, as well as the optimized version. Not really going to whiff going on there, or it's very hard for you to. Next up we have another Vanilla, 3 cost, 5000 power, 1000 counter Weevil. Get a full playset of Weevil. Next up we have Gecko Moria, decent one, also a reprint, 4 cost, 5000 body, 1000 counter. On play you can add a 7 Warlords type card or a Thriller Bark type card, which that second part of the effect doesn't matter. But you add from your trash to your hand other than a Gecko Moria. So basically a good way to recycle your 2k counters or some of like your more powerful cards like the Boa Hancock. Next up we have Mihawk, actually a decent starter deck reprint, 4 cost, 5000 body, 2000 counter. Don times while when attacking, draw 2, trash 2. Don't know if you noticed, but so far all the characters can be playable off our leader's ability there. So full place of the Mihawk, we got next up the Law here, which is a 1 cost, 1000 power blocker, no counter. Got a full playset of that. Next up, we have a reprint of a promo, which you also just recently got a reprint of in one of the premium collections there. 4 cost, 5,000 body, 1,000 counter. On KO, you can bottom deck a 3 cost character. Yeah, there we go. Decent, nice playset of that. And then that's the last card of the deck. And we followed up with our Dons.
A few moments later.
Alright, next up we have Luffy, also a very good one like the Doflamingo deck. This one is a reprint of the OPO5 leader. We do have a few versions of this leader floating around, which is nice, but yeah, good looking artwork for the Luffy here. 5,000 power, 5 life, mono purple leader. Effect for those that don't know, activate main, you can add the top card of your life to your hand, which allows you to then ramp an extra Don. You just can't do this on your first turn. So there we go. That Don does come out as active as well. So there, nice artwork with the Luffy. Next up, we're going to go into a pretty decent card, which is the Zorojuro. 4 cost, 6,000 body, no counter. It is a searcher. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a Straw Hat type card. Has to be purple, and it can be itself as well. So there we go. Pretty decent, 2 copies of that. Next up we have the Luffy Taro, which is also a pretty decent card. 7 cost, 8,000 body, no counter. On play, Don -1, you can play a Straw Hat type card with a cost of 5 or less from your hand. Has to be purple as well, so you can play at the Zorojuro, which we've just spoken about. There's a few other targets for this. Nice way to spam the board there, so just 2 copies of that. Next up we have Usohachi, 3 cost, 3,000 body, 2,000 counter. Pretty decent 2k counter, but the effect is actually not too bad. On play, if you have 8 or more Don cards on your field, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 5 or less, so a good way to get around pretty much all the blockers you're going to run to in the current format there. Speaking of blockers, we got Onami here, 4 cost, 2,000 power, 1,000 counter. On play, if you have 8 or more Don cards, you can trash a card from your hand and then draw 2 cards. So it has to be in that order. You have to trash first and then draw 2. So get a full playset of the Onami there. Next up, we have the Senguro, also a pretty decent card in this deck. Probably the best one you want to cheat out off the Luffy Taro. 5 cost, 6,000 body, 1,000 counter. When attacking, once per turn, if you add more Don cards on your field, you get to draw a card. So nice way to get some good draw, pretty good stats there, 5-6. That can be cheated out. Next up, we have a reprint in the Uso Hachi, 3 cost, 4,000 body, 2,000 counter. Don ×1 when attacking if you have 8 or more Don. Seeing a nice theme there with this deck. You can rest one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 4 or less. So the other Uso Hachi lets you rest a 5 cost or less for the sacrifice of 1,000 power. But there we go, Uso Hachi. Next up, we have the Orobi, 4 cost of 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. On play, if you have 8 or more Don cards on the field, KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less. So there we go. We get some nice removal, we get some draw power, we get some rest. You start to see this is a very well-rounded deck. The purple Luffy. We've got the Orobi in a full play set. Next up, we have Junbei, 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. Is a blocker, opponent's turn. If you have 10 Don cards on your field, this character gains 1,000 power. Do get a full playset of that right there. Next up, we have the Zorojuro, 3 cost, 4,000 power body, 1,000 counter. When attacking, if you have 3 or less life cards, then you can ramp a Don as active. Get a full playset of that right there. The Chopper Imon, 2 cost, 3,000 body, 1,000 counter. On play, if you have 8 or more Don, we're going to say it a lot in this deck. You can set one of your purple Straw Hat type characters as active, but they have to have 6,000 power or less. So you can't do the Luffy Taro, but you can do the Draw Sanji there. Next up, we have another 2k counter in the Franosuke. So 5 cost, 4,000 power, 2,000 counter, Don ×1. If you have 8 or more Don cards, this guy gains rush. So a nice option to have a bit of rush in this deck here. Next up, we have a 4 cost, 6,000 body in the Hon Kichi. On play, if you have 8 or more Don cards, you can give up to 2 of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power for the turn. So once again, you got plenty of options with this deck. We can rest stuff, we can neg power, we can KO stuff, we can restand stuff, so pretty good. Next up, we have when you're at sea, you'll fight against pirates. So this one is just basically a searcher for the deck. Look at the top 3, add a Straw Hat type card to your hand. The trigger is the exact same effect right there. Next up, we have a reprint of a promo Luffy, 10 cost, 12,000 power, 1,000 counter, a vanilla, nice big bad boy there. You can quickly get to this. with your leader's ability there, and then we've got our Don for that deck.
Let's move on to the next item on our list.
Alright, next up we have Smokey. This is probably one I'm Loki's excited about. Did play Smoker back in the day, so good to see Smoker getting some support here. Nice looking artwork of the Smoker as well. For those that don't know, Smoker mono black leader, 5,000 power, 5 life. Don ×1, activate main. You can give one of your opponent's characters -1 cost. Then if there is a character with a cost of 0 on the field, this leader gains 1,000 power during this turn. So there we go. Get a nice buff, go to 6k, swing into some stuff there. Unfortunately, it doesn't carry over to your opponent's turn. That would make Smoker a little bit insane. But yeah, just on your turn there. Nice looking artwork. Next up, we have Tashigi. So this is a pretty decent card. Only decent for Smoker though. 5 cost, 6,000 power body, 1,000 counter on play. If your leader is Smoker, that's why it's only good for Smoker. You can give one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn. So getting some cost reduction, which we know Black is very good at. Then the activate main, once per turn. If this character was played this turn, trash one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 0. Trashing, pretty decent effect because it gets around the KOing effects or the non-KOable characters because you're trashing it, which is pretty decent. Also a very nice stat line. Next up we have Hina, 4 cost, 6,000 body, no counter. Don ×1, your opponent's turn, this character gains +4 cost, which is pretty good into the Black Mirror match, making it at 8 cost harder for your opponent to remove via effect. The other part of the effect is activate main. Once per turn, you may place 1 card from your trash. At the bottom of your deck, give one of your rested Don to your leader or character. So you can get some nice Don manipulation going on there. Hina, an okay card. 2 copies of that in the deck. Next up we have Smoker. This is probably one of the better cards in the deck as well. 6 cost, 8,000 body, no counter on play. You may trash 1 Black Navy type card from your hand. Up to 2 of your opponent's characters with the cost of 4 or less cannot attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. Pretty decent card. There, as I mentioned before, Doflamingo, Zoro, that sort of stuff loves to run a lot of low cost bodies, so Smoker can lock them down. Next up we have Sengoku, 1 cost, 1,000 power, 1,000 counter on play. You may trash 2 Black Navy cards from your hand and then you can draw 3 cards. We get just 2 copies of that. The cards is pretty decent, so you want to pick up 2 copies of the deck to be able to play the Sengoku. Next up we have the Garp, 3 cost, 4,000 body, 1,000 counter blocker. Activate main once per turn, place a card from your trash at the bottom of your deck. Give up to one of your opponent's characters -1 cost during the turn, so another way to get some good cost reduction going on there. We do get a full playset of old Garpy boy there. Next up we have Kobe. So we've spoken about a few ways to get some cost reduction. Tashigi does trash, but Kobe is one of our KOing bodies here. 3 cost, 4,000 body, 1,000 counter on play. You trash a card from your hand, KO something with a cost of 3 or less. We can definitely make that very possible with the cost reduction we have access to. Speaking of cost reduction, Suru is another one. 2k counter, 1 cost to play, give something -2 cost during the turn. We get a full playset of the Suru there. Next up we have the Rosinante, just a nice blocker, 2 cost, 2,000 power, 1,000 counter. No fancy effects outside of that. Then we have the Jaguar di Sol, which is the vanilla for the deck, 4 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. We get a full playset of the Soul there. Then we have Helmeppo. So Helmeppo, 3 cost, 3,000 body, 1,000 counter. When attacking, give up to one of your opponent's characters -2 cost during the turn. Then if there is a character with a cost of 0, this gains 2,000 power during this battle. And is also a trigger that can play itself out. So works well with your leader's ability because you want stuff at 0 to get that buff on your Smoker as well. So yeah, pretty decent card. Also adds a way to get characters down to 0 so you can get those buffs there. Next up we have another vanilla Yamakaji, 3 cost, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. You get a full playset of this fella right here. Then we got Ice Age, pretty decent card. We see it a lot in the current meta. Cost you 1, you can minus something by 5 cost during the turn. The trigger is KO something with a cost of 3 or less. We get a full playset of that right there. And then we got another 2k counter in Virgo, 5 cost, 5,000 power body. Don ×1, this character can be KO'd in battle, which is pretty decent into anything except black. Then we have brand new, the Searcher for the deck on play. Look at the top 3, add a navy, trash the others. Cost you 2, 3,000 body, and a 1,000 counter. Pretty decent because you only need to slap 2 on it to make it an attacking body. And then that is all she wrote for that one.
Well, it's coming up to the home stretch.
Okay, moving on to the final deck, we've got ourselves Katakuri. This is a reprint from OPO3. A nice looking artwork right there. I still think the original alternate art is the better version of the artwork for this guy here. Katakuri, for those that don't know, 5,000 power, 5 life, mono yellow leader. Don ×1 when attacking. You can look at the top card of your life or your opponent's life, and you can either leave it there or move it to the bottom. Then this leader gains 1,000 power. So for 1 Don, you're swinging for 7,000 power, which is actually pretty decent. There we go. That's Katakuri. Very decent deck. Still a pretty good rogue deck right now. First up, we have a new Katakuri. 5 cost 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. Is a blocker. Activate main once per turn. You may turn one of your life cards face up, and then you can give a rested Don to one of your leaders or characters. So good way to get some Don manipulation there, but it does come at the risk of flipping a life face up, but you can't activate that effect if there is a life face up already. 2 copies of that. Next up, we have Linen. It's actually a pretty decent card, Linen. 6 cost 7,000 power, no counter on play. You may trash 1 card from your hand, and then your opponent chooses to do one of the following. They can either trash 2 cards from their hand, or they can trash the top card of their life. So there we go. Pretty decent all around there, either negging hand size or trashing a life. Next up, we have a new Charlotte Cracker. 4 cost 5,000 body, 1,000 counter once per turn. If this character will be KO'd by an effect, you may trash 1 card from the top of your life instead. So similar to the Enel that we've seen before, if it would be removed from play, trash a life. But this one is only if it will be KO'd by an effect. So keep that in mind. The trigger is you trash 1 card to play this card. And we do get a full playset of the Cracker. Next up, we have Brule, a pretty decent 2k counter to come for yellow. 3 cost 3,000 power. Trigger, you can look at the top card of your opponent's life. You can either place at the top or the bottom of their life, and then you can add this card to your hand. So you can still use it as a 2k counter and use the trigger, which is actually pretty nice. Next up, we have Pudding. 3 cost 2,000 power, 1,000 counter. Look, this is probably not the greatest card in this deck. On play, you may add 1 card from the top of your life to your hand. Set one of your Big Mom type characters with the cost of 3 or less as active. So yeah, you're probably going to steer away from this card. Not too many good targets for you to use that effect on. The trigger is you can rest one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 3 or less. That is probably the best part about this card. We do get 2 copies of the Pudding, which is actually not a bad thing. Next up, we have a vanilla in the Opera. 4 costs 6,000 body, 1,000 counter. Get a full playset as we've seen with all our other vanillas. Next up, we have Galette, a 2 cost 2,000 power, 1,000 counter blocker. Nothing fancy about Galette right there. We get a full playset of that. Next up, we get Smoothie, a decent card. 4 cost 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. When attacking, you add the top card of your life to your hand. Then this character gains 2,000 power during the battle, which is actually pretty decent to get being nice and aggressive. The trigger is you trash a card to play this card. Yellow loves some good triggers there. Always nice to cheat out some characters. Next, we have Pudding, which is a searcher for the deck. You're not going to whiff with Pudding in this one. Look at the top 4, reveal a Big Mom or a Sanji, add it to your hand. The rest go to the bottom of the deck in any order. It is just a top 4, unlike most searchers, which is a top 5, so keep that in mind. Next up, we have a 2k counter in Struzen. 1 cost of 1,000 counter. On play, you can trash a card with trigger from your hand, KO something with a cost of 1 or less. That effect hardly ever comes up. If you play the sealed format of this one, there are a few 1 cost blockers floating around, but yeah, not really going to be used outside of being a 2k counter. Daifuku is the next card we have here. 4 cost 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. Pretty decent yellow card. Just a fancy way to draw basically is what the effect is here. Don ×1 when attacking, add the top card of your life to your hand, and then you can replace it with the top card of your deck. So yeah, just a fancy way to draw one. Full playset of the Daifuku. Next up, we have Peckham's, another vanilla. 3 cost 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. Then we have the Sovereignty, which is a 2 cost counter event. Gives something 5,000 power for the battle, which is actually pretty decent for just 2. And the trigger is you trash 2 cards from your hand. Add a card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. So trashing 2 just to recover 1. Full playset of the Sovereignty. Then we have Thunderbolt, which is the removal event of the deck. Costs you 2. Trash a card from the top of your life. KO something with a cost of 5 or less. That is a bit of a hefty cost there, the trigger is a lot nicer. You can just straight KO something with the cost of 5 or less. So we got a full play set of the Thunderbolt there, and that rounds off that deck right there. So there you go. That is a look at all of the brand new starter decks. What is your favorite? Mine, look, like the Doffy and the Luffy are pretty good for the meta, but as I mentioned, I think I was most excited about the Smoker one right there. But stay tuned for upcoming deck profiles, upcoming PRB01 openings. Hopefully we can finally break the manga curse here on the channel and pull something. But stay beautiful, and we'll see you all in the next one.